Hello, I'm Jamie and I've recently started a YouTube channel as a way to express my thoughts and opinions about film and television as I aim for a career in the television industry. So one of my favourite genres of television especially is the detective and cop show. I have watched more detective shows than I can count, and I grew up with my mum watching all sorts of murder mystery shows such as Murder, She Wrote, Midsomer Murders, Poirot, etc. So I've always been around it and I've really enjoyed the genre. Up until recently, I have never recognised or acknowledged the problematic aspects of detective and cop shows until the Black Lives Matter movement placed a lot of emphasis on the cop propaganda we see in detective and cop shows. I started to see people call for shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine to move away from the emphasis on police. I initially thought this was unnecessary, as it is a comedy show and it's more progressive than others. However, after reading a bit more into it, I do really realise how Brooklyn Nine-Nine contains a lot of problematic aspects that we see with the cop propaganda. I also watched a video by The Take about the hero cop trope, which I strongly recommend watching. I completely understand why this genre is problematic, and I wanted to explore what makes detective shows very interesting to me and how they can be made so that they address real life and serious issues within the police force and the law enforcement. The main argument is that these shows are cop propaganda or copaganda, and this is when a show presents cops as being friendly, heroic, morally superior and an ally to the public, when in fact the police system, particularly in America, is deeply flawed and many cops are violent, racist, sexist, homophobic. And I'm going to look at Brooklyn Nine-Nine as an example, as it is a cop show that is considered one of the more progressive and has a very diverse cast and has begun tackling issues such as police brutality, racism, racial profiling and homophobia within the police force. However, it still presents cops as fun and friendly goofballs who mess around in the office and then go and solve crime, protecting the public, and it's very much the public interest in mind. It also shows the NYPD as being diverse and more left-leaning politically, when in fact it is still deeply problematic and corrupt and very not left-leaning. The corrupt cops in Brooklyn Nine-Nine are seen as a few bad apples in the barrel, and other cops will root them out, and which is just not the case. It doesn't show the terrible problem within the police force of covering up corruption from other police officers. So I'm first going to look at some of the issues within the detective and cop shows. One is the way that police automatically assume someone is guilty and then go and find evidence to incriminate them. This I used to see as intuition of the detective. However, this leads to profiling of a person or group of people, and real police officers are influenced by their own biases. This unfortunately is shown with the racial profiling of real police officers against, more prominently, black people, as they assume that a black person is automatically guilty of something. We have seen unarmed black people be shot because the police officer felt threatened, and then allow armed white criminals to wander around brandishing their guns unchallenged. While it may not be this explicit in detective shows, they still do show a bias towards people and situations. It also goes against the proper way to find a guilty suspect, which is to look at the evidence first, which may be circumstantial, see which way that points, and then find more evidence to confirm it. Another one that really gets on my nerves is the way that police officers and detectives break the law they are supposed to enforce and uphold to catch a suspect. At first I saw this as detectives doing whatever they had to do to catch the criminals and put them in prison, and I can't believe that this was once justified in my mind. An example of this is searching or entering a home without a warrant, which is an invasion of privacy and an exploitation of their power. Not only is this morally and legally wrong, it can also lead to their case falling apart in court, as evidence that is illegally obtained is not admissible in court. This issue is even worse in action cop films such as Die Hard, where John McClane shoots before really assessing where somebody is guilty and goes against the police code multiple times. And again, despite this, police shouldn't just automatically shoot. Should arrest and only shoot if it is absolutely necessary, and even then it's not shoot to kill. Again, this is portrayed as doing whatever they can to stop the baddies, but there is a complete disregard to civilians' lives and safety and the law. Another one is when they automatically see someone is guilty when they request a lawyer. And I'm the same. Whenever someone in a show asks for a lawyer, I'm like, oh, they're definitely hiding something. When in fact, it is a completely legal and responsible thing to do when you're being questioned, either as a suspect or as a witness.
What a fucking lawyer, mother.
Having a lawyer present there for you makes sure that you are able to give all the correct information and all the necessary information. And more importantly, a lawyer can help ensure that the police are following their procedure to the letter of the law.
To the letter of the law.
And are held responsible when they don't. An example of this is when the guilty person gets their charges dropped because they weren't read their rights, for example, and this person is shown to be sneaky, sly, getting away with their crimes, when in fact this is completely due to police incompetence. Another example is the way that defence attorneys are seen as protecting criminals, such as in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The treatment and portrayal of Sophia, Jake's girlfriend, is very negative, and it presents her as almost a nuisance who doesn't want justice and wants her criminals on the streets.
But I'm only intimidated by professions that have a moral compass, like police officer.
I do automatically question the morals of defence attorneys, especially when they're trying to reduce the prison sentence of people who have committed dangerous and heinous crimes. However, in the end, that is their job. That is what they're being paid for, and defence attorneys are essential people. I do find Brooklyn Nine-Nine's approach to portraying them a bit odd and slightly hypocritical, because Jake spends time in prison and sees how awful and corrupt it is, and that it is not a livable situation. It is not, people aren't treated humanely. And yet he still finds the fact that Sophia wants to lessen the amount of people that go into jail, or lessen the amount of time people spend in there, perhaps because she knows how horrible it can be. It's weird that he doesn't understand why defence attorneys want to reduce the amount of time people spend, and how things like community service and rehabilitation are more beneficial than prison. And if you've experienced being in prison, surely you would recognise that. Now I'm just going to talk a bit about a show that I think does a really good job in representing the police force in a way that is more critical and less like copaganda, and that is Line of Duty. Now, it's not perfect, and I'm sure people have many criticisms of it in their representation of police officers, but I think it does a great job. So, first of all, Line of Duty takes place in the anti-corruption unit, which investigates police corruption, and the first scene shows Steve Arnott, the lead character, and his anti-terrorism squad make a fatal mistake which leads to the murder of an innocent man. His superior instructs them to lie, to cover it up, portraying the innocent victim as a criminal. Steve refuses, testifies against them, and then is recruited into anti-corruption. The reason I feel it is not cop propaganda is that over the course of the show it is revealed that corruption is not just a few bad apples. It is the entire system that is flawed and corrupt, including people in anti-corruption. It shows that every part of the police service is vulnerable to corruption. The writers really call out the hypocrisy of detectives, and it just goes to show how ridiculous the entire system is. For example, in season 4, we see a detective ignore vital evidence and frame somebody for a crime she committed. Arguably she did commit it in self-defence, but nevertheless. And when a young woman is arrested for this crime, she says, "You've ruined my life." And another detective replies, "No, we protect lives." This just goes to show how the police want to appear to the public and how they are portrayed in the media, when in fact they often don't show the reality. We see a woman be persecuted for a crime that she didn't commit, but the detectives feel that they are doing something good, and that is how they'll be portrayed in the media. Another positive thing to say about Line of Duty is that they show corruption within the anti-corruption unit, and illustrates how no police officer can be trusted within an untrustworthy system. Throughout the series, they explore the relationship between the police force and the media's representation of their duties. In Season 3, Hastings, the head of Anti-Corruption 12, is asked to basically sweep his inquiry under the rug as not to lose public trust as a result of the corruption that he will expose. Here, this implies that public trust and perception is vital and highlights how the media plays a major part in keeping up appearances.
And I don't care whether it's one rotten apple or the whole bloody barrel.
In Season 4, the higher-ups, who are also corrupt, would rather charge an innocent person than admit they charged the wrong person, citing it would lead to a loss of public trust. They also highlight the fake wokeness by having the antagonist in Season 4 tell people off if they refer to the victims as prostitutes, saying that's not what they should be reduced to. Right? I agree with that. But then she charges a woman for engaging in sexual activity for commercial gain and treats her as a criminal, highlighting how detectives, similar in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, who attempt to be more woke than others, will then go and prosecute people they say they support. In the episode where Jake interrogates the dentist, he calls him junkie scum, while then remarking that addiction is a very serious illness and shouldn't be taken lightly. There is a great article that discusses this and other issues that I have mentioned that I'll link in the description.
Philip, a successful periodontist that's become addicted to diazepam, a sedative I take because I'm junkie scum. Also, for real, addiction is a disease I would be super empathetic if you hadn't murdered him.
They acknowledge very briefly the seriousness of addiction, but have a whole massive plot point focusing on tracking down a party drug called Giggle Pig, which does nothing to reduce the stigma around drug addiction. So, is my love for these shows problematic? No, but only if I can watch a show and recognise that this is not reality and not an accurate representation of police officers. The format of the detective show, whether that's about a police detective, regular cops, PI, or somebody not attached to the police like Jessica Fletcher, is always going to be popular and very entertaining to me. The format is very successful in creating tension and encourages the audience to solve the mystery before the characters do, and often has shocking plot twists. It is also important to note that a lot of these shows revolve around detectives rather than your regular beat cops. So they're more highly trained and specialised, so it's less like copaganda, but it does misrepresent the police force. I would like to see more shows that highlight the flaws in the police service and actually try and tackle real life issues. And hopefully Brooklyn Nine does that, which they say they are going to do. But I feel like it can't really be done in a comedy format. I feel like it has to be taken seriously. So that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like it, and if you want to see more videos about an analysis of TV, film, my university life, then please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.